Hello, Valerio Caruso. How are you?
Good, thank you very much. From Brussels.
So we are today talking about the film festival, the European Union Film Festival in Zimbabwe, the 2020 edition. And it's really interesting what Zoom possibilities or the internet can offer, because I'm in Germany, you are in Brussels, but we are talking about film globally, but attending the film festival in Zimbabwe. So I think new technologies is the way to go in this crisis.
Yes, absolutely. As you said, actually, it was a big challenge to shift from live event to online film festival, and we were very worried because now it's the second edition of the online film festival. We did the first edition in May, and we rushed literally in April after the situation get worse to transfer everything online. And we didn't know how it would work. But at the end, we had something like 20 films online and 30 film festivals around the world. So we took it as an opportunity instead of a threat, because we could reach more people, that's for sure. But also the people are kind of different. The audience is different depending on the countries. For example, in South America, there were more people from locally, so less people related to embassies and diplomats, but the age in all the countries were older people, sometimes local, which is not the case of Zimbabwe. We were talking before, and you said that in Zimbabwe, because of the problems of the internet connections, there are more rich people or healthy people, wealthy people, and probably in the area of diplomacy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So Valerio, because not everyone knows you as we speak today, it would be really nice if you could introduce yourself a bit more in depth, that we can understand what you are doing and what your role is, and also how you are connected to our festival.
Yes, well, I'm director of a website on European cinema called cineeuropa.org. We produce news about European cinema, so the film in production, the film distributed. We have all the trailers from the European Film Festival. We have a lot of interviews of film directors. And the site started as a site for professionals, so linking business to business people. But in the last year, we have a lot of people coming just for normal people like cinephile to watch the trailer and read the news about the movies. So I think there is an appetite for European content around the world. The site is in 4 languages, so we have also Spanish and French, for example, and Italian. And we are very, very popular in Latin America, for example, or African countries, French-speaking African countries. So this means that there is an interest for European culture and European cinema. And since 2 years, I'm working on this project, which is financed by the European Union to support the organization of film festival organized by the delegation of the European Union in the world. So we are working with more or less 80 countries, and we select film, we provide copies to those delegations, and we help organizing side events. So either from basic Q&A with the director to more professional meeting, like the one that you did in Zimbabwe.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And I would be interested to know a little bit more how you actually had the idea of starting this website. What was?
Yes, well, it was 20 years ago, and of course, well, internet was already established, but there were no a single website talking about European cinema, and actually there is no at the moment, after 20 years, there is no website. So we thought to have a website multilingual in several languages to reach as many people as possible, talking about European Union. So that was the concept. To go online with a website, because before Cinema Europa, the only international, I would say, website or cinema magazine was Variety, Screen International, and Hollywood Reporter, and they are very much Hollywood centered.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And in terms of your content, what is kind of your criteria? I mean, are you the one watching all the movies, or do you have a team, and what is kind of your selecting capacity?
Well, we follow many festivals during the year, so we try to talk of all the movies which are presented in the festival and that are also released in the countries. Of course, sometimes we have to make a selection, mm-hmm. But you know, we have between 40 and 50 journalists, and really we try to cover all the films. We are not talking only about films. Mm-hmm. We don't do only reviews. We also do industry news. Also, for example, we're talking about legislations, mm-hmm. About we make case studies on co-productions. We talk about distribution problems. Mm-hmm. So it's also very much of interest for professionals.
Mm-hmm. I have to say now, from the perspective of organizing film festivals to us in Zimbabwe, I feel it's really helpful because you already have selected a number of films and we just get that package and it makes our work a lot easier. So I think this is really very much appreciated by the delegation and the people we work with. And it's really a very great amount of films, and they're very particular and very special and very relatable as well. So I really appreciate your selection of movies.
Thank you.
Yeah, I would like to talk a little bit more from your perspective, since you are based in Brussels and you have a lot of contact to European filmmakers. I would be interested to find out how your senses of how much COVID actually affected the film practitioners.
Well, in Europe, there are some studies that are published in this month, and it's absolutely very, very, very dramatic, the situation. Some studies, for example, in Germany, this was done by the Ministry of Culture in Germany. They talk about 70% of losses in the sector. So 70%, it's a lot. All the sector are concerned. Maybe the only one which is increasing and increasing quite substantially is the VOD sector, video on demand, which is booming. I heard some report. So the VOD, video on demand sector, increase of 30% in 6 months, and platforms like Amazon or Netflix, after the COVID, they increased the share in the action 30%. So it's really something which is booming. Mm-hmm. So the shooting are stopped because of sanitary measures. Mm-hmm. And of course, all the European member states are reacting to that and are proposing financial measures to overcome the situation.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Because I believe having, I mean, particular film as a genre in the art sector is one genre which can really survive online, I guess. There are lots of opportunities and possibilities, but still filmmakers have to produce content. What are they doing currently? I mean, how do you know of interesting examples of what filmmakers or film practitioners, how they deal with this situation at the moment?
No, as I said before, they stop production.
Mm-hmm.
So the shooting, in most of the cases, are not are stopped.
Mm-hmm.
Also because the insurance are not covering the shooting.
Mm-hmm.
So I heard that there is a lot of pain in the production side, but also in the distribution side.
Mm-hmm.
And people are either stop working or they are they are fired. So there are a lot of unemployment in the sector at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, that goes obviously for the entire world, and countries or continents like Africa, they suffer greatly with the same situation, because there's also no social network of being able to, you know, apply. I mean, in Germany, a practitioner can apply for government funding, which in other countries is not possible. But obviously the pain of not being creative is also a very big pain. I know that as well from the musicians who cannot perform. I mean, these creative people obviously want to be creative. It's not only about the financial impact, but it's also not being able to do the professions they are wanting to do. And I think the pain is huge. And I really hope that soon that will change again, that we can see some great movies. I know from my experience now hosting the film festival in Zimbabwe and looking at the short film competition, I also had the idea that now, of course, normal productions can't take place, but people then started trying to find other solutions, being in very small team. I mean, of course, the film sector in Zimbabwe is still in a very basic stage. You can't I mean, obviously you can't compare it to Hollywood, and looking at big productions, they are not happening anyway, but filmmakers are trying now to kind of look at their stories in front of their doorsteps and trying to do very small things with very few cameras and still trying to do films. Is that an approach which can work in Europe as well? Basically going back to the basics?
I think, yes, what I could see from the short film competition is that yes, there is a lot of creativity, and again, what for me is crucial and important is the universal issue of the scripts. If you have a script which is local but talk about universal values or universal themes, then I think you can really succeed. Mm-hmm. And I think we can learn from this crisis to do more with less. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Which is a little bit what all the production companies are doing now. So trying to save money, but also looking for creative solution for all the aspects, from scripts to shooting to actors to all the aspects of the production.
Yeah, so it's a rethinking in a way which has to take place. From your experience being in the sector for many years, do you think, because obviously as a film festival, we are not looking at only showcasing European films, we're also supporting film practitioners in Zimbabwe and creating a bridge between the two countries or the two continents. So often I get questions from filmmakers, how can we show, or is our content even interesting in Europe? Would people, if the content would be of high quality and maybe universal stories, or maybe even our own stories, which might not be so universal, even in our own languages. Is that, I mean, do you feel there is an interest in African stories from the continent?
Well, we did an online film festival showcasing African content in Europe, and I can say that yes, there is an interest for African story, also from the diaspora, of course. Mm-hmm. There is a lot of people from the diaspora which are interested in this kind of films. Mm-hmm. Now the problem is really, as for the European content, the real problem is the distribution, where to get the films, and how to market them. So many times the content exists, but people are not able to watch because they don't know where to watch. So I think it's really a matter of marketing power and lack of distribution channels.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And do you feel that is a role European festivals on the continent can play? Do you see that there is room for facilitation of some sort?
Excuse me, can you repeat the question? Sorry.
My question is, if you see us as we organize European festivals on the African continent, do you see that is a role we can play? We can support African films being distributed in Europe? Or is this?
Well, I think it's more a matter of European Film Festival in Europe. I mean, or not European Film Festival, but film festival in Europe. And for example, I think Berlinale is doing a lot for African content. They have since 4 or 5 years a spot called Africa Hub, where they are presenting African content, African producer, and African talents. So I think it's really the role of the big festivals. Also, Venice Film Festival, they have a spotlight on African content. So I think it's more on the side of the big festivals. Then we have some festivals of African content in Milano. I think there is one big festival, the African Film Festival, and some festivals in Brussels, in Montpellier. Is not African, it's a Mediterranean, but covering North Africa as well. So I think it's a matter of really pushing this kind of content. Of course, it's not mass consumption. We are talking always about people which are interested in other cultures. So in a way, of course, people that are reading, that are interested in other countries. So maybe in the age of 40, 50. So maybe they're not young people. So the target is quite particular, I think.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And one aspect, which of course is always the difficult one, is the financing of films. I mean, that is where all creatives struggle with. Do you have any ideas or recommendations for African filmmakers, how they could access possible funding, whether in Africa or in Europe or anywhere else in the world for that matter?
For African filmmakers, well, yeah, it's quite challenging because, of course, in Europe we have an ecosystem for the visual content, and we have support. So all the member states and even the European Union is supporting audiovisual content and cinema. So it's much more easy for a filmmaker and a producer in Europe to start and to get funds and to produce content. When in Africa, in many countries, for example, just talking about the networks, the television, the public television, I don't have the impression that they play the game. So they are not producing local content, they are not buying local content. So in most of the cases, also the content which is created in Africa, there is no distribution channel. also because there are no cinemas or very few cinemas. So all the ecosystem around the production of films is weak. So I think it's a real problem that to start really from setting up rules, structures, and impose, for example, television, but also big networks or VOD platforms or telecommunication, also telecommunication companies, mobile phone companies, to pay a tax like in Europe, in France, they are the pioneer. So they tax the internet platforms, they tax telecommunication, they tax even the ticket. There is a percentage of the price of the cinema ticket which goes to the cinema center in France, which is reintroduced in the industry. So I think it's really a matter of creating an ecosystem around the production of films. My advice for the filmmakers, of course, is to work with producer. This is very important to separate. I know it's not always easy in African countries, but filmmaker is a filmmaker, is a director, is the creative aspect of the production. I think it's important to have real producers. So the producer that can write the dossier to ask money to the funds, and so there is a couple, no, which is formed by the filmmaker and the producer. And I think there are many opportunities from, for example, the member state Institut Français or even the Goethe Institute to get some even small support, but try to get some scholarships and go to some training in Europe and try to increase the network, the professional network. Mm-hmm. I think this is the way that I saw many producers, many filmmakers achieve. So there is money in Europe. That's for clear. There is money for production, and I think that the African filmmakers or African producers that succeed, they always have a link with Europe, mm-hmm. And they achieve to have co-production with Europe. So most of the films are financed by the European Union. I mean, the European member states.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I noticed that when we selected films for this year's festival, that all the films which were selected, all the communication I had was then actually with producers from France and Germany. So all the African, we have a film from Namibia, from Ghana, from Uganda, and there was always somewhere a connection in Europe. I actually had noticed that as well. My question though would be, is there a way of how we could also support producers on the continent, because maybe there is also, maybe that is a network which also needs some expansion, because producers might not have the access to European funding, and maybe that's also a linkage to actually kind of see how in the future we could be possibly support producers on the continent.
Yes, well, of course the most important thing for producers is money. Mm-hmm. So if we could set up a fund, that would be great. But with our small action, so with the European Film Festival, I'll just give you an example. What we did in Namibia, we worked with the Namibian Film Commission. We selected something like between 20 and 30 producers. And we train them on production, and we coach for 6 months on the development of their projects. And we brought a delegation of Namibian producers in Berlin and in Berlin Film Festival, and we organized one-to-one meetings with many different professionals, from fans to other producers or distributors, just to try to give them the possibility to increase the network of professional contacts, but also to really connect with European producers. And I mean, it's not money that we're giving to the producer, but it's a knowledge and practical contacts, so practical things. And I think it was succeed. So it was not expensive, but the results were positive.
I think this is a really great idea, because I can also relate to that now as we are doing the input sessions online. Also, you have been part of the jury for the short film competition, and I can see that now our network is really expanding, because we never thought this way, because we only thought locally, having physical festivals. So we never really expanded our thinking. But now, because of COVID and having these technologies available and making active use of them, our basis of people who are behind the festival, there we have people in Hollywood, a Ugandan filmmaker in Hollywood, an actress in South Africa. I mean, now our network is so much bigger, and these are potential people also to support our film festival. Oops, that is me, I'm sorry. And also now we have an expansion, and I think this will be at the advantage of the film practitioners in Zimbabwe, because now we are creating linkages between different practitioners all over the world. And I think that's something which might not be measurable in terms of money per se, but these connections are the connections which will further practitioners. And I think this is really something very important. And I see that also as a role of our festival, to actually start connecting people.
Yes, yeah, no, that's if we can increase also the network and the use of also online connection to we discovered in a way because of COVID, we discovered the possibility to organize many different things, including training with producers, so we can really link people and increase the productivity of our actions.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I feel this is something, at least for our festival in Zimbabwe, which we will continue working on, because this year was the first. We started last year with international connections, but I think expanding networks will be one of our core values to go forward, and creating these bridges, and also being able to have access. That's also something I think which a European festival can. Can afford to support practitioners, because access is also what gives us financial support in the long run. So I think this is really a very important area. In terms of your experience now supporting European festivals, let's say worldwide, because it's not only Africa you're supporting, is there, do you have best practice examples or ideas of how we as European festivals can actually support local practitioners beyond the network? Or do you have any tangible idea or examples of where really a festival connected with the local practitioners as a European film festival?
Well, as I said before, there are many festivals that organize small training courses, even online. I'm thinking in Paraguay, India, and Indonesia, and those kind of training can be done online, on production, on co-production with Europe, and on script writing. They are not very expensive, and you can connect local professionals with an European audience. And the other thing is what you do, I think, is very important. short film competition and awards. That's, I think, very important for the local filmmakers. It's really important to get an award, even if it's a small award. It's something that can really increase the career of the filmmaker. Mm-hmm. No, it's already something. You did something and you wanna an award, and this kind of, it really helps the promotion of the filmmaker and of the talent.
Mm-hmm. Okay, yeah, it's really interesting to hear also how every festival is trying to make these connections, because I think in many years back, often European film festivals were only screening European content, and I think we really shifted our mindset to kind of understand that we, in order to show our movies and to create a bridge, we also have to support filmmakers or film practitioners. So that's really important, I think.
Yes, and from my experience, especially in Africa, when you project local films, you have a lot of people, and you have there is the audience for local content. And I went in Rwanda, in Burkina Faso, in Togo, in Benin, and they have a mix of European content and local content. Mm-hmm. But when you show local content, even I would say if the quality is not really good, but people nevertheless they really like local contents. And when you go to, for example, to a big festival like the FESPACO in Ouagadougou, Burkina Faso, and you can really see that there is an appetite for African content, and the cinemas are full of people and screaming and laughing and crying, much more than for European content or even Hollywood content.
Yes, yeah, because it's relatable and supporting your own, I guess. And Valeria, I know that this year normally we would have met in Zimbabwe. Because of COVID, this is not possible. But next year, do you think you can find your way to Zimbabwe?
Absolutely, yes, with great pleasure.
Yeah, that would be wonderful that we could have more engagements and more conversation around film. But lastly, I wanted to also ask you, because you have seen, I don't know how many movies you have seen in your life. There must be thousands of movies you have seen. Which is your all-time favorite movie? Do you have one?
That's well, I have maybe several, but one of my favorite films is Amélie Poulain. It was, I think it has the first film with Audrey Tautou, 20 years ago. It was very, very nice and very original. I think the way it was filmed, and also the character. Well, it's a very difficult question, but I think
I was just curious to hear if there's, because we all have our favorite movies, so I thought maybe it would be interesting to know. And my very last question is that you have seen all the short movies from Zimbabwe, yes, because you were one of the jury members. What was your feeling in regards to the content? I know you spoke a little bit about it, but it would be interesting at the end to hear maybe what advice you could also give to filmmakers and practitioners in Zimbabwe, also having seen the content which was produced in Zimbabwe.
Well, I can say that sometimes the film were too long, so I think it's not. I mean, the filmmaker needs to really go to the essential of the movie and cut scenes which are not useful for the film. Work on the script really to shorten and go to the essential of the essence of the film. And maybe there is another problem which is common in many African movies. It's the acting. Sometimes it's not really good as it should be. Sometimes it's really good, it's really good, but sometimes it's not really, I would not say professional, but no, there are ways to improve the acting. So this is my advice.
Okay, thank you very much, Valerio, for your time. I know you are very busy supporting all these festivals which are running at the moment. We are not the only one you're working with. How many film festivals are?
80.
Yes.
80.
So that's quite a lot, and we always all have many questions for you. So I know we take a lot of time, but also thank you very much for supporting us. It really means a lot to our festival and also to our quality of the festival, because with our engagement with Cine Europe and your advice, we were able to get to that next level. So we are really grateful for that support. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Roberta, and goodbye to all the filmmakers and the film cinephile in Zimbabwe.
Thank you very much, and see you next year in Zimbabwe.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye. Bye.